There's another view of our patch, and we're getting ready to go to the vehicle. In the OPF, we're putting on our LESs and getting ready to check out good pressure integrity in everybody's suits. Carlos is buttoned down with the visor down. There's Mike, and he was relaxed and ready to go to space. Jean-Francois was too. Elena joining us from Russia, of course, and very pleasant day for us to go out, although it was 4:30 in the morning. I know many of you probably went down to the Cape and had to stay up all night to see it. It was a real nice night for us, and the weather was gorgeous, and they tell us that we were visible almost to Miko.
Our liftoff, actually the countdown and the liftoff were totally flawless from the crew's point of view. We just lit up the sky all the way up and down the Florida coast, so we're told.
That view in the corner is the view I had through the overhead window. I had a mirror in my hand that I could look out. You can actually see the VAB going by as we do the roll program.
I like to talk about the feelings that you have during a launch. It's actually very much like the shuttle simulator. There's a lot of shaking and rocking going on inside. You can see out the window flashes of light that sometimes can interrupt your vision if you look outside too much. Also, the sound is like, to me, it's like standing in a room that's on fire. It's just a very low-level sound that's very similar to what you hear outside during a launch. Solid rocket booster separation, and from this point on, we're back to 1G as we slowly accelerate up to 3Gs, and then main engine cutoff.
Next thing you know, we're in orbit. We've separated from the tank, and we are taking photographs of the tank here crossing over northern part of Africa.
Post-insertion main activity is to activate the experiments, and here the space hub, the main cargo in the payload bay, and we had to open 3 doors to access into space hub through a very long tunnel, as you can see. The space hub was very clean, and we spent a few hours to set up the whole module for the experiments and also get ready for transfer ops.
This is a neat picture of a rendezvous burn. I lost my hat there momentarily, but we get a pretty good acceleration out of the OMS engine when we make our approach to the mirror. We burned several times. Here, down at the bottom, you can barely see the station. We had a very low beta angle, they call it, which is the angle between the sun and our orbit plane. And that meant that the mirror was actually going to eclipse the sun for us. And you see it's getting dark in the orbiter, and there goes the sun, and there's the mirror. And to see that on orbit was amazing because the mirror actually glows white because the sun that you can't see is still bouncing off of our payload bay doors and illuminating the mirror. There's a view that Jerry was able to see of us approaching, and then again our centerline camera view during the approach. This step by step we get a little bit closer, and of course our task is to inch in gradually according to a given timeline, and everything worked so well for us that we had a very docile contact, and you can see the sun was just about to come up and rise over the OMS pod as we contacted. So this is all silhouetted here, but we make a very soft contact there, and almost no oscillations after capture. Everything went smoothly on the pressure checks, so we had the opportunity to open the hatch right away and get a good view of our colleagues on the other side.
Well, here in this shot, you'll see what you weren't able to see in the still picture earlier, which is the true feeling of joy and celebration we had. Elena brought in traditional black bread, salt, and tea. There's Vasily, first time here. You'll see Jerry for the first time. And just look at that smile on his face. And the obvious need for a haircut. They hadn't had a vacuum cleaner for a while, so we helped fix them up there so they can get their hair cut. And we proceeded on in to do our first press conference in the base block. And here's Eileen's attempt to confuse all children throughout the world as to how we really move around in space as she swims through the mirror. Okay. Well, we continue had our first press conference, which was shortly thereafter followed by eating of the bread, and actually Jerry had his pretzels that he'd been wanting.
And as Elena already mentioned, the second evening on the dock phase, we had an international meal with food from all the countries represented by the crew. We had food from Russia, America, Peru, China. We had, of course, food from France with foie gras and confit. Here, goat cheese. And we had barbecue from... We had barbecue from Pity's, dehydrated. And for 3 hours, the ground never called us, and we had a very good time in the meal. Here you see a chocolate gift from ESA with the logo of the different partners in the International Space Station program.
All kinds of food down here on the table.
As you can see, the chocolate shuttles flying around. Eileen thinks that some of them may be stuck somewhere behind panels there.
It was really neat that this was all spontaneous, too, to have that kind of a good time with our colleagues up there.
This is some of the handover operations between Mike and Jerry, as Jerry and Mike discuss the equipment that's being brought over. And here we are with the commander of the station, Vasily, trying to figure out which items we need to bring over next, back over to the Space Hab. Looks like Vasily's stealing something there, but that's actually his checklist he's taken with him back to the mirror. Carlos brushing his hair in the mirror.
Hair management is very important on orbit.
This is the Mir base block. You can see the table where we had dinner the other night. There's Mike having his lunch, and Sasha and Vasily. You can see how much equipment is around inside there, and it's actually one of the more spacious modules. In some of the other modules, there's quite a bit more stuff. This is Sasha's bedroom. You can see that he has a very nice view out his window. There's a shuttle parked out there today.
This is one of these beautiful historic views that I was telling you about earlier. You see the Red Sea, the Gulf of Suez, the Gulf of Aqaba, the Sinai Peninsula. Of course, we're docked to Mir at this point. Here's the Nile River. Down at the bottom, you can see the Nile Delta. As we move on further to the east, this is the Volga River Delta that we're flying over Asia at this point. Again, you can see the docking module on the left side that was added on STS-74 about 1.5 years ago. In this view, up from the docking module, you see Cristal, and then Spectre to the left, Cavant 2 to the right, base module at the top.
It's Soyuz down there.
Well, all good things had to come to an end. We worked very well together on board. We worked so efficiently, we had time to have meals together, and then we had to say goodbye. This was a much more somber occasion than we'd had on docking day. It was actually fairly quiet until we decided, well, it was time to start saying goodbye and working our way out the door. There was no great rush to do this, and luckily the ground was able to give us all the time we wanted to get this done.
Here we see the hatch closing. As I mentioned earlier, this was quite a sad time for us, and it was very quiet as opposed to the very noisy time when we had docked. Here's the undocking. You can see the shuttle jets firing, separation. The springs in the docking mechanism give us the initial push off from Mir, and at approximately just a few feet, 2 feet after we separated from Mir, I fired several jets to get us separating down the R-bar. We had extra fuel because Charlie had done such a great job on the rendezvous. We had extra fuel to spend during the separation. So we had reached quite a high separation rate to increase the efficiency of the undocking and the tests that we were doing. View from Mir that was downlinked of the shuttle. The Mir had great views of us because they were looking down at the Earth, but all we had was a view of Mir against the dark sky as we looked up.
After undock, it was time to resume more intense activity on the scientific experiments. Here you saw a biorack. Elena, Ed, and I were all scheduled for those about 10 different experiments using the biorack facility, incubators, and glove box. And you see here Elena working on the Osteo Mars. These are experiments on bone cells. We had also, the glove box was used for experiments where some dangerous chemicals were used. Here are some tadpoles that we are developing their neurovestibular systems in zero G, and we are not swimming as the same tadpoles grown on Earth.
This is an experiment to look at the motion of liquids inside rotating tanks, which you may ask, why is that important? And the reason is because fuel tanks on rotating satellites often have a problem where the fuel inside them starts to rotate in a different direction than the rest of the satellite, which makes the whole satellite wobble, which is not something that satellite designers like to have on their very expensive satellites. So we had a set of rotating tanks here, and you can see the fluid inside there rotating back and forth around inside that tank, and you can see it's rotating in a different direction. This is a view taken from the inside.
We also had several experiments where we grew protein crystals. That's a new field that we've actually flown many times now on the orbiter, and it stands to give us some great benefits in the future as we develop custom medicines and for diseases that are a challenge to the community right now.
This is the output from our fax machine that I was talking about earlier. We wanted to illustrate how long this really is, extended all the way down the tunnel into the Space Hab. View from the Space Hab, this is our meal time. You can see the Space Hab is extremely spacious, and it's a very comfortable place for astronauts to work, to live and work. Jerry's showing us some of the fresh tortillas that we had packed that lasted the whole mission. This is not a bubble. This is actually a blob of water that Jean-Francois had made from a straw in one of his drinks. And we did our own liquid motion experiment informally as a crew as we watched the behavior of these things in space.
One of the things we have to watch out for is the degradation to our bodies when we're on orbit, because we're not really fully utilizing all our muscles. So we had lots of opportunity to exercise either on our ergometer or cycle or on a treadmill. Jerry probably logged more miles on orbit than at least anybody that I know. But he provided a lot of feedback to the community here on this treadmill that we're developing for the station. Another form of exercise here, the mass tunnel motion. Actually, right here. Oh, yes, that's right. Almost missed it. Going off the top of the screen right now is Lima. Once again, the ground was able to get this shot for us one night while we were sleeping. Into view right now is the Nazca Desert, where you have those great lines in the sand out there. We couldn't see them from on orbit.
This again is Hawaii. That's the big island up at the top, and you can see the string of islands stretching down below. Maui, Molokai.
We had a very nice night pass over Italy. You recognize the boot of Italy and Sicilia, and the moon glint on the Mediterranean Sea in between Sicily and Italy.
At our orbital altitude, we see about 16 sunrises and sunsets a day. The Earth is on top in this view, and it looks like a sunset. I guess in reverse, it could be a sunrise. And it's time to come home. This is a clip of our deorbit prep. Everyone suited up just about 2 hours or so before the deorbit burn. It's a very hectic time. There's many things to do. The payload bay doors are coming closed. It's a major part of the events in coming home, because once the doors are closed, you lose the radiator cooling. This is a view from the middeck. We're intentionally showing this upside down because many times you need to work upside down in space and do it effectively. On the flight deck, you see Jean-Francois in the middle. There's Charlie reviewing procedures for the entry, and myself. We had Ed Liu in the Mission Specialist number 1 seat. Carlos is in the MS2 seat, is our prime flight engineer. The entry, you can see out my windows, the heating. We reach almost 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit on the outside as we re-enter Mach 25 and slow down. You can see the jets fire, a plasma develops, as you know, around the orbiter, and we can see the reflection of that out the overhead windows.
Well, we're back close to KSC here, getting ready to approach subsonic, and you can see the jets pulsing there as we approach the Kennedy Space Center. This is a view from the ground of us coming around the hack, and you'll see here again in a minute my view out the front window of the head-up display. And you've got airspeed information and altitude information on the scales on the left and right, as well as the position of the runway outlined for me, so that when we come down through the clouds here at about 8,000 feet, we'll break through the clouds and you'll see that the runway is in fact exactly in that position, showing just how precise the orbiter's navigation system is. And you'll continue to see our view down through the lower right corner here as the orbiter starts its pre-flare. And coming into 300 feet, Eileen puts the gear down. You saw the gear word flash there. Coming into the overrun here with the gear down at about 50 feet or so, you can see with this view the wind gust that catches us right here at about 20 feet and starts moving us to the left. And we just put the right wheel down first to arrest the drift, and once we got it on the runway, it handled quite nicely. So little surprises come from time to time, but the orbiter is a wonderful machine and it handles that kind of thing just fine. We rolled it down the centerline stripe, and Jerry was hooting and hollering all the way home, of course. And we were happy to bring him home. And that's the story of STS-84. Thank you very much.